What's up, everybody? Welcome back to RacingDudes.com. Welcome back to another one of our previews. Let's go to Lexington. Let's go to Kentucky. Let's go to Keeneland, and let's go to the Bluegrass. Saturday, April 5th, race 10 on the card. Field of 7 for this one. The goal mile on an eighth, $1.25 million. The purse, of course, a grade 1 event. Let's put the field up for you now. We'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. It's a field of just 7, but they are pretty tightly grouped, is how I would describe it. Pretty tough field as far as picking a winner. I think no matter who you pick, you're probably going to get a decent enough price. So that's kind of the good news. But again, I guess it's not bad news, but the kind of the difficult news is it's going to be a tough race to kind of pick and handicap. So let's go through them one by one. We'll go number 1, River Thames, to start this thing off. Suffered his first defeat last time out in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. This horse only lost a neck, did lose to Sovereignty. And I don't know, Sovereignty came back and didn't run all that well in the Fountain of Youth. So maybe that doesn't flatter River Thames as much as we kind of thought it would coming into this race. We kind of thought Sovereignty might run a little bit better or win or what have you. So, but with that being said, I do think this is a horse that comes in with a big shot. I do think he's got a lot of talent. I think the problem is going to be the distance. You might be skeptical that he was fading a little bit at a mile and a 16th. Does that mean he's going to fade a little bit at a mile and an eighth? I'm not sure. Draws the rail. I'm not sure that's the greatest position for River Thames, because I do think he needs kind of get towards the front. He might get pressed because there are some other speed horses in the race as well. So I kind of went into this thinking, yeah, he's going to be kind of one I'm going to think about. And I did, but at the end of the day, I didn't pick him in this spot. But I do think he's dangerous. I think he's in with a shot. Not going to surprise me at all if River Thames gets the job done. Let's go to the number 2, Render Judgment, a horse that will not be in front, will come from dead last, or close to last at least. And I do think the stretch out to a mile and an eighth, when he did it in the Risen Star, I thought it would be good for him. He didn't do much there. He did finish second in the Virginia Derby, but the Virginia Derby really wasn't all that strong of a race on paper, and he was 7 3/4 lengths behind the winner, American Promise. So I think the speed is going to set up for him. I think that gives him a chance. I think he was at least better in the last race. I still couldn't get all the way there with him. So, no, not a lot of interest for me with the number 2, Burnham Square. The number 2, Render Judgment. The number 3 is Burnham Square, and I think he is interesting for sure. 3 races back, kind of put it all together, broke the maiden at Gulfstream Park. That led to a win in the Holy Bull Stakes by a length and 3/4. He beat Tapan Street that day. Tapan Street comes back to win the Florida Derby. However, there is a negative on Burnham Square, and that is that he was 4th, beaten 3 lengths in the Fountain of Youth. So Tapan Street may have improved off of that effort in the Florida Derby. Maybe that horse that he beat in the Holy Bull, talking about Burnham Square, wasn't quite what we saw in the Florida Derby. And then you kind of look at the Fountain of Youth. This horse didn't run very well. I expect him to run better. I expect him to bounce back with a better effort here. I think he's in with a big shot. Pace should set up pretty perfect for him. I think there's going to be speed, and I think he can kind of jump up and maybe get the job done if it does materialize. So I think he's in with a shot for sure in this one. Decent spot for him. The number 4, Owen Almighty, a horse I have really grown to love. Last time out, a winner in the Tampa Bay Derby by 3.5 lengths. He defeated Chancer McPatrick in Hill Road. 2 horses that we think will improve. Hill Road in the Wood, and then Chancer we'll talk about here in a second here in the Bluegrass. Yeah, I think with him, same as River Thames, what does the pedigree say, and can the horse get a mile and an eighth? I thought he got a mile and a 16th pretty easily 2 straight times, Sam F. Davis and Tampa Bay Derby. So that's the good news. But a mile and an eighth, another big test. We'll see what happens with him. But he's a pretty darn good horse. I will say that. And I think this horse is in with a shot here for sure. Can he stretch? And what happens if he does have pace company up front? 2 big questions that he's going to have to answer. But I think he's in with a big shot. Hopefully he can just get that distance. The number 5 is kind of the enigma of the field. It's East Avenue. And at one time, East Avenue was kind of a highly thought of horse, or a horse that we thought would win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and be the champion of the season. Didn't go well for him in the Juvenile, stumbled out of the gate and just wasn't very good at all. And then went to the Risen Star on February 15th and was 4-5. And I think people decided, okay, he'll bounce back. He did not. It was not a good race. He tracked the leader Magnitude, turned into the stretch, and just went backwards, beating 22 3/4 lengths, finishing 10th. I don't know. When this horse has 4 races and when he's right, he's really right and he dominates. And then when he's wrong, he loses by several. So what horse shows up here is the big question. He gets back to Keeneland, which was where he won the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity as a 2-year-old. I think that's kind of where we'll start with the good news. It's going to be very interesting, guys. I'm kind of, you don't want to like totally give up on one like this that has a lot of talent. And I do still think that there is talent involved there with East Avenue. He's been showing it in the mornings. At the same time, this is kind of, you got to show me you can do something type of race. So, he's one that's hard to kind of figure. I haven't done the pick 4s and pick 5s yet, so I don't really know how deep I can go. If you can go deep, I would probably use him in this spot. But those sequences kind of force you to go a little bit short in this one. I don't know that he's one you can really use. He's kind of got to prove it here. We'll see what he can do in this one. The number 6 is Chancer McPatrick. Last time out, got knocked off the rust and got second, beaten 3.5 there in the Tampa Bay Derby, beaten by Owen Almighty. Breeders' Cup Juvenile, 2 races back. That was his first loss of his career, beaten 6.5, finishing 6th there. 3 wins before that. What's the common thing on the 2 races that he's lost? He went 2 turns, the mile and 16th races. A lot of people don't think this horse wants to stretch past the 1 turn. Pedigree-wise, I kind of think he does, but running-wise, maybe not. I can tell you that Chad Brown usually has his best 3-year-old in the Bluegrass, and so I think he believes this is his best 3-year-old. Will that be good enough to win the race this year? A horse like Sierra Leone and Zandon, they came here and won it. They were his best 3-year-old, and they were good enough to win. Highly Motivated was the best 3-year-old he had one year, and at least at the time of the running of the Bluegrass, and he came here and he got beat because Essential Quality was better, right? So, how good is the rest of this field? I don't think there are any world beaters, but how good is Chancer McPatrick? That's the big question mark. He's working extremely well. They kind of said, hey, he's a work or 2 short last time out. So we'll see what happens. I think he's going to run a much, much improved race. Is that good enough? That's going to be the big time question here for Chancer McPatrick. Finally, the number 7 is Admiral Dennis, horse that's going to have to improve. Up and down, does have a couple of wins, has a nice maiden win at Churchill, has an allowance win at Fairgrounds. His 2 tries against Stakes Company have not gone well. 4th, beaten 16.5. That's a race he stumbled. And then in the Rebel, he was 6th, beaten 7 in a race where he just, trailed, kind of got shuffled back and just kind of made up a little bit of ground. Well, he made up a lot of ground, actually, but not a lot on the actual horses that were still running down the lane. So, look, I don't have a lot of interest in him. Tough to back him in the spot. I think you can find, even if you want to go with a long shot, I don't think this is really the one. I would kind of rather take a little bit of a shot with, a horse like Render Judgment even. So I would be a little bit careful there with him. I just kind of think this is a Cox horse that just maybe isn't developing, quick enough to kind of get himself in to the big races. So with that being said, we got to pick somebody here, right? I really have debated between 3 horses, Burnham Square, Owen Almighty, and Chancer McPatrick. Those were the 3 horses I kept going back to of like, okay, I think it's going to be one of these 3. River Thames is the 5-2 morning line favorite. I didn't really want to go morning line favorite in this one. I don't love that Irad Ortiz Jr. jumps to River Thames, but I also understand that, hey, that's Todd Pletcher, and so you may just have to go with that. Irad had been on Owen Almighty, so that did bother me a little bit. Burnham Square's last race bothered me a little bit. His race 2 back kind of liked. So yeah, I'm right there. I'm like, I think that could happen. I think he could maybe get the job done. Chancer, I do think he's going to run better. How much better? I'm not quite sure. I just kept circling back to the number 4, Owen Almighty, and I'm going to put him on top here. I just kind of feel like he's a versatile horse. He's shown he doesn't have to have the lead, but he can go to the lead if nobody, goes. We know at Keeneland, predominantly, nothing's ever like a sure thing or every time in horse racing, but usually Keeneland's main track plays to speed pretty well. that doesn't mean like a horse like Sierra Leone can't go win, because he did last year, right? But, if you're in front or close to the lead, that'll be helpful. So I'm going to go number 4, Owen Almighty, to win the Bluegrass here. I'm not 100% sure a mile and eighth is really like going to wear his ultimate distance, but I think he might just be better than some of these horses. And I think his class might be able to hold on for the mile and an eighth, but it's hard to be confident in any of these. They've got their flaws, but I do think the number 4, Owen Almighty, is the one that I'm going to pick. Well, not think, I know he is the number one, the horse I am going to pick to win the Bluegrass Stakes. So give me the number 4, Owen Almighty, to win this year's version of the Bluegrass Stakes. All right, guys, that'll do it for our preview of the race. Hit the like button if you like it. Like the video, hit subscribe if you really like it. Want to get alert anytime we do videos like this. And most importantly, good luck if you're playing Keeneland on Saturday.